Hey, Kamil.
Justin,
How are you?
I'm a little nervous, but how it's going?
Settling.
And
Settling.
how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I think you'll do just fine here. We should have Tad jumping on here in a little bit, and then Raf should be on right about the time we get ready to go. So we'll have to get things ready. Is this recording already?
Yeah, it is recording.
That's good. We'll leave that as is. Clean my screen a little bit. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Good. What's the weather like over there for you guys? Is it getting colder?
Yeah, it's getting colder. Like at the night, it's like 1 or 2 degrees in Celsius.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the time for the winter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's coming.
And what is the weather on your location?
We are about the same as you right now. I always have to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, but yeah, about the same. About we might be 2 to maybe 3 degrees Celsius, but
Mhm.
lots of rain, getting cold. We had some snow just the other week for the first time.
And there was no snow yet in Poland, in Białystok this year, so we are
That's
still
good.
waiting.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be here soon enough. We'll see. As long as it just snows and stays cold enough, and it doesn't snow and then melt and snow and melt and just you feel like you're just walking in slop all winter and it's all gross and slushy. I can't stay clean, and then my dog wants to go on walks too, and he's really low to the ground, so he's covered in water. My
Yeah.
wife took him last night to the park, and he came home and he was just drenched because it got rained on. So he actually is sleeping underneath my desk over here. He comes to the office with me. So
Oh, nice.
oh yeah.
Is it a big one?
No, here I'll show you. Oh wait. The screen effects none. He's just chilling on his little bed, and he just sleeps underneath the desk next to my desk for the duration, and usually wakes me up when he has to go for a walk. And
Cute.
but yeah, for the most part, it's pretty easy. He doesn't make me do too much. What about you? Any pets?
Yeah, I have a dog as well.
Nice.
Boston Terrier. It's also not the big one.
Yep. I had a Boston Terrier years ago. They're great dogs.
Yes, they are.
Does it like to burrow under the covers?
Mm, I
Like
would not
go under the
say that.
blankets?
No, but he always want to sleep on some blanket. He
Yeah,
doesn't want to go under it, but there has to be something that he can lay on.
has to be comfortable.
Yeah. If there is nothing that he know that he can just lay on, he will find something, and probably it will be a pillow from the bed or something.
Love it. I'm gonna message Tad here real quick and see if he's ready to go. There we go. Do you have any more events coming up, Kamo, that you're going to, or
No,
not?
uh, I don't know any. in the nearest future.
Yeah. Are you planning on Summit again this next year or this coming year?
I don't know if I will be on the summit, but for sure the StreamX team will be there.
Good. That's good. You went last year though, correct?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
in Las Vegas last year. This
You
year,
did-
exactly.
You did the bike ride as well?
Yes, the bike ride was decent one. The place is beautiful.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
That was really neat. Yeah, Tad does a good job of figuring out how to put these, little events together around a conference itself to kind of really maximize it and give that space for people to get together and just, decompress a little bit or talk about something that they found, interesting or discuss
Yeah.
different ideas on solutions. It's kind of a neat space to be in.
Yeah, that was a great experience.
Did you do the one in Germany as well for AdaptTo? Did you go on the ride?
Unfortunately, no, I was not able to join the guys. But as I heard, Roman said that maybe it will be a new tradition for
That'd
the
be great.
AdaptTo.
Great.
So this bike ride before the day before the conference.
Yeah, it seems like a great idea. Morning, Tad.
Hello, Tad.
Hey, everybody.
He should have here shortly. He was on a call, so he said he will be here. But he had one that was butting up to this.
I just realized my background looks a little bleak without my bike there.
Oh, where'd it go?
I had it out for a ride yesterday. One
Oh, nice.
I gotta get my proper background.
Oh, there he goes. He's gonna put his bike up. Okay.
I'm like, man, I knew something was missing.
There you go. How many bikes do you have, Tad?
I should have worn my shirt from yesterday.
Not enough, according to him.
Not enough, according to him. That's hilarious.
I got this great shirt yesterday. It says, I love my wife, except for like in little letters underneath it says, I love when my wife lets me buy another bike.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good morning.
Hello.
You know, Tad, I almost wore that shirt today, but I decided instead to wear my Adobe Rockstar t-shirt. I don't know if you saw that. So, from a couple years ago, I wanted to, at least stick with the theme, but the metadata one is in the hamper. So there you go.
Raph, tell me you've got that shirt too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. All right, love it.
But mine's the white lettering, so people think it says Metallica, but it does not. It says metadata.
I've been struggling for a little while to make another version of the shirt with another metal band, and I think I've got a design for it. So I'm going with Iron Maiden now. So.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah, if we're having it say I ran Maven instead.
That's pretty fantastic. Love that. All right, so I've got a deck that I was going to show, so let me share that here too. 1 second while I get that running. And we'll give it another second for people to join. Yeah, and as you join, I would love to hear where everyone's dialing in from. That'd be fantastic. I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
Columbus, Ohio.
Białystok, Poland.
Lookout Mountain, Georgia.
All right. Hoping everyone can see the screen here. Awesome. All right, I'll give it one more minute. Let people join.
Tom Cameron, haven't seen you in a while.
Hey, Chad. How's it going?
Not bad.
Tad. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yo, Kevin.
How's it going?
Not bad.
All right, well, we're a couple of minutes in, so why don't we get started? This is going to be a really great discussion that we're going to have here. So it's a Post-adaptTo, just going to get some takeaways from Tad and Kamil's experience over at the AdaptTo with presenting with how you build out experiences in China, making sure that they're performant, some of the do's and don'ts. So we're gonna walk through some of those. We got a list of questions for them. I'll get to the agenda in just a minute here, but I'm also looking forward to some of the rapid fire questions. So that's something that's been kind of fun that we've been doing for the last couple of meetings. And then we'll close it out and talk about some of the next events that are going to be coming up. It's interesting because we're going to be getting a lot of events. It's just been jam-packed now. I mean, there's been several this week. I think we're following up on one just now that was in DOC. So Germany, there's more coming, almost every week. We've got these user group meetings that are happening. And there's also ones that we're going to be doing where we're co-hosting with some of the other chapters and some of the other user groups, such as Workfront. So that's really exciting. I'm really glad that we're getting into a good cadence here, with some of these meetings. So that's really exciting. Okay, so let me just go through some of what we're going to be talking about here. So a couple of housekeeping slides. We'll have some introductions. Again, we're going to talk about the AdaptTo conference that happened back in, what was it, end of September, October, was it? A great session in Berlin. We're going to talk about some of the insights and key takeaways for Tad and Kamil's session. Like I mentioned, we'll go through the rapid fire questions. We'll have some Q&A, and we'll wrap up. Okay, so wanted to cover off on a couple of things here. So there's a couple of events that are going to be coming up here. So tomorrow there's one. It's actually in Australia, New Zealand. It's in that particular chapter. It's an in-person event. I struggled to do the time change last night when I was putting together this particular slide and updating it with the events. It's 5 p.m. local time in Australia, I think. I think it said it was going to be like something like 2 in.the morning Central Time. So I couldn't do the math, and that might have been like 2 days ahead. I couldn't even figure it out. So that's hopefully keep me honest with that one. Wednesday, there's going to be one, this is next week, where they're going to be talking about exploring edge delivery services and traditional AEM sites. So that's hosted by the DOC user group as well. That's going to be in person. And then also we're going to have a virtual meeting. This is going to be an AEM GEMS. So this is with the AEM assets where they're going to talk about having a unified user-centric experience with this new landing page. So that will be a fun one too. That's the AEM learning chapter. So again, that's virtual. You can scan the QR code there to get information about those events. Cool. Okay, so just a little bit about Adobe Champions as well. So you can get this SME badge if you fill out this survey. Take about half hour. It's on demand. This is available until the 26th. So that's next week on Wednesday. Just got some sample questions. Answer the questions. They'll show you the right answers, and they're just looking for some feedback about, just making sure that the certification exams are kept up to date and are relevant and that they're good questions. So you can get an SME badge if you fill that out. So leave the QR code there for a second. I'm going
to say something too about that SME badge.
Yeah.
So if anybody here, I mean, I'm willing to wager that most of the folks that are on this meetup have taken an Adobe certification at some point. And sometimes they ask you questions that are ludicrous or are poorly worded or are, you know, they want you to give you the right answer as of 2018 or something like that. And so they want the feedback. And the only way that the tests ever get updated is with the feedback. And so when you write feedback, they listen. And so so times that we've been on those, and the way that I got my SME hat, you know, is from writing cranky responses to test questions. So they definitely want the feedback.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point there too. I had gone through that survey, I think it was last month, and I saw that there was a question which the answer could be different depending on if you were on premise or on cloud service. Right. So they need to know that. Right. Cool. Thank you for that. Couple of other things here too. So just a couple of different surveys that you can fill out here. About 10 minutes for some of these. So a couple of QR codes that are up here specifically for assets, for sites, and content supply chain and Gen Studio. So we've got those, and let me just keep going here. Just a couple of house rules. You know, we're not about pitching anything. You know, this is all about learning. This is about community. So that's the spirit of this. So, you know, that's how we kind of want to keep it. You know, we don't want people, you know, reaching out to others for, you know, any kind of soliciting, that kind of thing. So just wanted to mention that here too. We are being recorded. So if you are uncomfortable with being part of the recording, then you can certainly review the recording later on. A couple of emails there too. It's the co-leads for this particular chapter that you can reach out to if you got, you know, additional questions. So we got there too. Okay. So introductions, we got Tad Reeves, who a lot of you probably know is a subject matter expert with Adobe, and Kamil Chociej, hopefully I pronounced that right, is the two presenters that presented at the AdaptTo conference in Berlin. And they had a really good session, talked about delivering performant experiences in China and some of the, you know, some of the takeaways that we wanted to ask them about there too. And then also about, you know, what you should know about building out experiences in China for that population. Okay, so I'm a co-host. Justin Ranley is also, and Madan. I don't know if Madan is on the call, if he made it here, but hopefully Justin and Madan, and while Tad and Kamil are talking, we'll just keep an eye on the chat and Q&A if people have questions. There's a Q&A section that's part of the platform here, so, you know, feel free to drop a question in there, and, you know, we'll try to answer it best we can. So we'll keep an eye on that. Awesome. Okay, so let's start off here. So key insights and takeaways. Just wanted to start it off with with a question. So, you know, just describe the experience in Berlin. I mean, how was that? Was that your guys' first time there? You know, tell me what was the most fun, you know, what was the biggest surprise? You know, just tell us a little bit about the experience of being in Berlin, you know, with all those other professionals and developers, and you know, what was that like?
So Kamil, you've been to Berlin a fair bit more than me.
Yeah, at AdaptTo, it was my second time when I was attending in person, but previously I was watching the recordings on YouTube. I think that they are posting the recordings 3 weeks after the conference. Yeah, actually, this kind of question that usually makes me sweat a little because I'm most comfortable in strictly technical conversations. And actually, this is what I enjoyed the most at AdaptTo. There's absolutely zero fluff, and the atmosphere there is naturally technical. You sit down, and in a few minutes, someone on stage is drawing some or showing some diagrams, architecture diagrams, or sharing the code snippets, and I really like it. And Tad, what was your experience?
Well, so in getting to know AEM to begin with, like, you know, whatever, 2013, 14, stuff like that, back in my earlier part of my AEM career, like AdaptTo was always kind of like this reference point of like this inner circle of people who were like the highly technical in crowd on AEM. So I kind of always wanted to go, and I wanted to go like first in like 2020, but then, you know, COVID hit. And so, but I at least got to attend virtually, and then attended my first one in person last year. I think that was my second time in Berlin, but that was my first time attending the conference, and I definitely wanted to speak. But the like Kamil said, the vibe of AdaptTo is like super different from Adobe Summit. Adobe Summit is like this big, it's like this huge circus of vendors and people trying to get attention and people trying to sell stuff and people trying to hire people and people trying to say this is what Adobe's are going to do. And this, it's like this big, loud media circus. And whereas AdaptTo is much more focused and much more just like, hey, we're going to show you how to do some cool stuff. And it's all the people who are getting up on stage are not polished. You know, most of these people, like half of them have never spoken before. So you can tell they're nervous. They're like, I'm usually more comfortable behind a computer screen. Like I'm in front of people. Like, so but that makes it so genuine and so endearing. And the thing that's so wonderful about it too is that you can just go talk to them afterwards. And because they, just a couple, it's a couple presentations, then a coffee break, couple presentations, and then food. It's like, so you get to go out and just find them and say, hey, you did this thing. Is that real? Like, and then it's, so that whole part of it is really nice.
Yeah, and as well the part with the experts tables, right, where you can fire the questions to the experts. And yeah. And actually, you can ask the questions to anyone from Adobe, the people who you usually have no access to talk with. Yeah, that's great experience.
So you mentioned like there's really no fluff, right? So that means that you can ask good, honest, technical questions. Like, tell me about what's happening here under the hood, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Awesome. And what's really funny too is that sometimes somebody will bring something up, and you've got most of the like the operations guys, a bunch of the it's something like a third of the attendees are Adobe employees, and almost all of them are engineering. They're all just Adobe engineers. None of these guys are like product management or marketing folks or something like that. And so whenever somebody's got like something a little bit off the rails, that they say, oh, we had this problem and we have a solution, and it's fun to watch the interactions there.
Nice, cool. Okay, so let's get to just the next question here. So, and we just wanted to get into the meat of some of the sessions that you had attended there too. But, based on some of the other sessions and even maybe some of the recent conferences that had happened, for example, the Adobe Developers Live, right? What do you think that practitioners should be aware of as far as the way they work and what the future of the platform AEM holds? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Do you want to go first, Kamil? Because I've got controversial thoughts.
Good.
You can go.
Okay. All right. My controversial thoughts. So first off, so you should know that the conference started out like the original name of the AdaptTo conference was like, what was it called? It was called Apache Sling and Friends, and it's supposed to just be an Apache Sling conference and turned into an AEM conference, and it's basically just been all centered around regular AEM. And so obviously as Adobe marches towards this new future of edge delivery services, that has caused a little bit of friction and crankiness on because you've got a lot of people like me who are fans of classic regular AEM, especially AEM on-prem, because it's fun to run. It's fun to watch it explode, but it's also fun to run. And so, but the future really is like Adobe's kind of pretty laser focused around this idea of a super fast web future and solving the problems of the modern web, which are different than the problems and constraints around the web as it existed 10 years ago. And especially these days, and this is something too that was kind of doubled down on a lot during Adobe Developer Live. I don't know if this kind of crosses over out of AdaptTo land, but the entire idea that Adobe's focus is not just because previously you're designing your website for visitors, and the only crawlers that mattered were like bots from Google and Baidu and stuff like that, who are just trying to just crawl your content, but then they're just going to try to get you to your site. Right now, the difference is that in the very, very near future, agents are going to have like basically on a even level in terms of importance to human visitors, because you're going to have all these use cases of people saying, hey, yo, why don't you go and do a shootout between booking.com, Expedia, and Google Flights. Find me flights to London for around these dates, and then book them for me using my travel card. Go. And then an agent in your browser or whatever is going to go off and do all that stuff. So at that point, a bot is not just a bot, it's a legitimate user of the site, and you have to have your site designed to be able to accommodate the bots. And so Adobe is kind of frantically, because what they're seeing on their stats, and this is this LLM optimizer that they kind of rolled out a little bit, and they rolled it out more on at DevLive, and it's like this is where they're seeing these stats of like this year to last year, like a 47x increase in terms of agent traffic on websites, anywhere between 11x and 47. And this is like it's happening. So they're like being able to very quickly roll out content, and being able to get a website migration done in weeks rather than half a year or 3/4 of a year or something like that is kind of the name of the game.
Interesting. Yeah. And I recall that they talked about these 0-click searches, right? Where you might be doing a search for something and then you don't even have to go to the website. You already have the relevant content showing up in your browser in that search result because of what that LLM got from the site, right?
Right.
And those sites that it pulled the content from have to be performant. Like I think what I heard from one of the conferences last week was that if the site took any longer than 3 seconds, then you're out of the game.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
you have 3 seconds, which I guess, that's a really neat segue to if we were there to talk about our China thing too, because there's like expectations of performance that we've all kind of had. And there's been this thing for a little while of like, it's okay, good. You're in China. It's okay. It's going to take a long time to load this thing. If it's longer than 3 seconds now, it's not just, they're having to temper their expectations for you. If it's longer than 3 seconds, it just may not show up at all. It may not be cited at all. It may not be used at all. And it's not just like you're going to be tanked a little bit, or it's a signal, because this is always a thing too that we've heard is that, and this has been the thing that Google's been saying, like, oh yeah, page speed insights and Lighthouse scores are a signal that we are using in search ranking. Well, how about if it's not a signal? What if it's like, guess what? You're not showing at all if you take longer than 3 seconds. It's not just a signal anymore.
Yeah, that ought to be a wake-up call, I would say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So in your session, you talked about some of the things that are really prohibitive as far as access and visibility, and things that we really take for granted, right? So you go to a hotel, you can get to VPN, you can get to your own corporate kind of website, you can get to GitHub, you can get to analytics. Sounds like those things are just not possible. Well, a lot of those things aren't possible when you're working with experiences in China. So what even is available? What can you do to deliver a modern site?
Well, yeah, go ahead, Kamil.
Yeah, actually, if you want to deliver a modern site in China, the best solution is to host it in China. You have to keep your content in China and serve it from there. And not only like static content like HTML assets and so on, but also the dynamic part of the site has to be hosted there. Because if any request from user browser is going through the Great Firewall to the offshore system, probably it won't work.
Yeah, and that was something that we kind of just end up settling on as one of these kind of like, cardinal like principles of designing an experience in China, is that just like, you just got to know that anytime you have anything that's transiting the Great Firewall, it could be bad. So you just got to just assume that anything that's transiting that, maybe today it's okay, maybe today that experience is okay, but it's at risk. It's either at risk or it's going to be bad if it transits the Great Firewall. So you got to stick as much as you can in China, and then you got to manage whatever's going to be outside. Like for example, and Kamil could go over his like the infrastructure that we created for all this is that all those GitOps, like for example, GitHub is blocked a lot of times in China. So you can't have your GitOps transiting the Great Firewall, because then that's going to, it's going to die half the time. So either you have to just make sure that it's durable. You have like a lot of retry logic and a lot of like, oh, well, if I can't get through today, then what do I do? Like if it's blocked all day today, not just blocked, 1 out of 6 times or something like that, then what do I do? But that's where you say, good, well, if it's very highly likely to be blocked, then you got to move all those operations outside and only serve the user-facing things in China.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah, so you mentioned a couple of things there, sort of guiding principles on delivering the site in China, but what would you say is sort of a top sort of thing that an organization ought to be focusing on, and just based on what we know, where AEM's going as far as, like we were just talking about LLM optimization, right? What do you think they should prioritize as far as delivering those experiences? Is it a testing framework?
Yeah,
Is it
so my first answer to that would be data, because data, you can't make any decision about infrastructure without data. And I think that was one. So it's interesting. One of the folks we have in this room right now is one of the 3 China projects that I did prior to all this, and we didn't have data. That was one of the things. Is that it's like you go, okay, well, if Google Analytics only works, maybe 3 out of 10 times, I mean, ish. It's like it's all over the map in terms of like what I've seen, like doing my own testing, like put a bunch of virtual desktops out there and then run hits against things and seeing which ones show up in Google Analytics in real time. And it's so hit and miss. So you just don't know how many people you're getting, and then you don't know what their experience is. Like if your RUM doesn't work, like if you got like Dynatrace, or you got like, New Relic or something like that, and that RUM data is just simply not getting captured. And you're like, well, should I invest? Do I need to put a person there? Do I need to spend the money on this? I mean, you can make that decision easily if you already are selling in China. So if you're already selling, it's like, good, you got customers. You don't need any more data than that to know that you need to invest if you've already got customers. But if you're like, I'm getting leads and I'm not really sure how many that I'm missing or whatever, you need the data. And that's where we found things like, for example, the Alibaba ARMS. And that's like, so if you go, so ARMS is their application real-time monitoring service or something like that. Alibaba ARMS is a product that you can get almost for free, and with low volumes of traffic, it is free. So if you say, good, I'm gonna just take my China traffic, I'm gonna make a branch of my site, or I'm gonna do something to geofence it, or make an edge worker in my CDN that goes and injects this ARMS analytics data or tracking code into just my Chinese traffic. And then you have data. Then you're like, oh, okay, good. Well, guess what? Look, Mike, because of whatever VPN agreement or because of, the CDN I'm using or whatever, maybe the performance isn't that bad. And then you don't need to do anything about it. And maybe the performance is absolutely terrible, which we definitely found it was for our own sites. Because like, for example, Fastly traffic is just abysmal in China. Then you really need to do something about that if you care about those visits.
Okay. So Kamil, what would you say is top focus that organizations should think about?
I think exactly the same. You have to find out what is the current state, and if you are able to test it.
Okay. No, that's really good information. So I think one of the things we also know, one of the things that I noticed from the session that you had is that AEM as a cloud service does not work in China, right? So what do you recommend then for people who are on AEM as a cloud service for delivering content there?
I think it's a broad question.
Is
Unfortunately,
it the
Yeah.
same thing though? Is it basically you have to build up the experience in China in
So-
China's data centers?
You do well. So the first thing to know is that your published tier is always fronted by Fastly, if you're not using a separate CDN, because we did find we talked to somebody who's running, what was it called, JD Cloud in China, which right now apparently has decent performance in China. It's not totally unacceptable, and for whatever reason, right now it's working. So that's the cloud provider that Cloudflare is basically kind of white labeling in, and so you could go and just get yourself a .cn domain, because in order to be in China, you gotta have your whole ICP license and all that kind of stuff. So you can get that and possibly go and layer on a China CDN, and then it's possible that without rewriting your entire website or implementing a whole infrastructure solution, it's possible that you could get, as a stopgap solution, you could do something like that. But yeah, it's but aside from that, if you've got any bespoke experiences, then you're getting into what Kamil and his team we're working on there in terms of being able to especially get stuff like commerce and stuff sticking on top of that. Then you're going to need gear there. It's not going to work with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's going to be a reveal there that we're looking forward to seeing what that solution looks like. So can't wait to hear about that. Cool. Okay, so let's go to the next one. We got a couple more slides too, by the way. So there's a pretty good pool of questions, but we may not get to every one. A lot of them are similar in nature, like talking about images, for example. But this one is specifically around just the an edge cluster inside China with a protected messaging system. Like what are some sort of acceptable delays and content updates that might be there. That's what this question is around.
In the most time, it is a real-time update. But if the connection is interrupted, it can take like few minutes or a few hours to update the content. It is unpredictable. But yeah.
Oh, Kamil, so you made some really interesting observations on this based on time of day, also, especially from Europe, right?
Yeah, if the internet is heavily used in China, it looks like the Great Firewall is much slower than when it is not used that much, and when it is night at China. The most of the requests are pretty fast, so the delay won't be that big.
And that delay was huge. Like it wasn't just like a 1 is 2 times faster or something like that. Like when we were rolling out infrastructure to China, and you're like trying to push container images and stuff like that out there, it was like it was like 20 times slower or something like that during their workday.
Yeah, during the workday, it like downloading the image from one of the registries in Europe or US, it can take like a few hours. But if you are doing this at night, it will take like a few seconds or a few minutes.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. Just the scalability differences there between night and day is literally night and day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Our thought on that. I mean, we've got all kinds of hypotheses that we end up having to make up, because obviously we have no data, so we have to fill that vacuum with our inventions. But what it looks like is their egress gear and ingress gear that's filtering, those themselves get loaded, because all those filters are just rules-based firewalls. They're just computers, and so they can get overwhelmed as well. So our guess is just during their workday, those are just overwhelmed. So all your big pushes, you basically have to schedule those in advance for not during their workday.
Interesting.
So if you've got big content things, then you're just going to know that if you're publishing actively or doing things actively or pushing a bunch of media actively during their workday, it's going to be seriously delayed. So you got to do it basically upside down during our workday.
Right. Which, is somewhat helpful, right? At least it's a little bit of a friendlier time zone.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I think you already talked about this a little bit about the RUM metrics and having those being able to get reliable data, right? So this kind of just goes back to, making sure that, data is the focus. It should be the number one priority for building out your site. So anything else that you wanted to add here as far as the RUM data?
Not really. But I guess the only other thing to add is that it's highly variable. It's totally variable, and you can't do. So I've seen people who say, "Oh yeah, we do web page test monitors, and that's how we figure it out whether or not our page performance is good or not." You basically have to have multiple sources of data that you're taking it from, and not relying on any one source. Because I've seen these where web page test doesn't look that bad. Like the page, like for example, our own site. So running on Edge Delivery, we're getting like 8-second load times on web page test, and it wasn't that bad. And then you'd go and try it from in China, and it's like 2-minute load times. So
wow.
So getting the on the ground data is really, really important. It actually is we went and I took a branch of our Edge Delivery site. We just made a China branch and then threw a bunch of this ARMS that Alibaba Cloud, this ARMS stuff on it. And then we took every single contact that we have in China. We had like a bunch of like Adobe sales that were in Shanghai and in Beijing and stuff like that, a bunch of people, and just said, good, can you just give this link to a bunch of your friends in China and just hit it locally and just hit it. And then so we generated a whole bunch of in China traffic, and it was like, okay, good. No, it's the real load time is 1.5 minutes. That's the real average load time is 1.5 minutes.
Wow.
So you get that data from real people. You can't just take the synthetic data is highly unreliable.
Yeah. So you mentioned data and making sure that you have that data. Would you say that that's the single key takeaway about delivering the performance sites in China? Is that it?
2 takeaways. Or 3. One is data. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is like video of China cities for a little while and just get an idea of how big they are. Like if you haven't been, there's so many people, and any idea that you might have of like what China was like is not what it's like right now. There's a large middle class. There's a lot of buying power. They buy more cars than any place else. They're the biggest cell phone market by double. There is so much buying power there. And I think that when we don't get a lot of sales or don't get a lot of traffic, we tend to say, well, it's not really our market. And you discount it. I think you just got to understand that it is big, and that we're not out of technical solutions to be able to handle it. We have a lot of ways to address it.
Wow. Okay.
There's my takeaway.
Yeah. Kamil, do you have a single key takeaway?
A single key takeaway from my side is that if you want to have a truly working site in China, you have to deploy your content and all the runtime dependencies in China, or you have to push it somehow, like in our solution, to the China. So the user has never to reach any resources outside of the China through the Great Firewall.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for that. All right, let's get into a little bit about what to do and what not to do as far as delivering out some of those performance sites and experiences in China. So, we've got a lot of questions here. Like I said, we may not get to all of them, but basically, there was just a couple of guiding principles that you had mentioned before too, right? And something that we gathered from the session that was recorded. So, as far as an architect, what is an architect's most critical first step when starting this delivering a project in China to make sure that they're sort of adhering to those principles?
I would say the architect has to build a map of the content sources for the site, for the experience. Mm-hmm. And you have to find out all the content sources that can be problematic when requested from the China. Like, for example, if you are using Google fonts hosted in Google CDN, it won't work in China. If you are using videos hosted in YouTube, those won't work in China. and so on and so on. If you are requesting some dynamic media images from China, it won't work as well. You have to find out all those endpoints and think about how you can transfer this functionality to China, or if you can take like a snapshot of this functionality and host it there.
And I think more on that too, because you found this a lot when designing a solution around commerce also, because you got to also look at what are the life cycles of those resources also. How often are they updated? What's the trigger that updates them? What is it? Does it always happen with a deployment? Does it always happen with a content update? Is there like sometimes like you take like a PIM or something like this, where maybe you're used to like a nightly loadout of all these things dumping from your PIM into AEM or something like this. Well, does it really just change every night, or is there some other way is there some other trigger that you could use to be able to go and update these and push these through? I think that considering the life cycle of those assets, of like, can they be more static? Is it okay if they're more static, or can I push them in a controlled way? I think that understanding, like Kamil said, understanding the content sources, and then that can sometimes lead you to a potential solution for how you then push that to be served strictly from China.
Awesome. No, that's really good. That's really good. So let's talk about this a little bit. One of the things that was mentioned in the session was, a well-performing, partially broken site all the time. I thought that was really good. But at what point, if you have something like a dynamic feature like the navigation, if it's static, good. Is that sort of the takeaway there, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's pretty it.
But if I stick a amp W equals 1200 onto an image, and then now that image is coming through 1200 pixels wide, and that's a rendition basically that you've got out there in Fastly land. But if you're in China, you don't necessarily have access to Fastly driven image renditions, and so you have to basically decide how you're going to handle that. Do you want to rely on in China functionality? Basically, end up with two sites essentially. You've got, let's say you're going to rely on your in China CDN to deliver the image renditions, then you need to have a reliable pipeline to get it there, because a CDN is just another set of computers, as we found out from Cloudflare's outage yesterday. CDN is just another set of computers, and those computers, even though they're hosting your images locally, they still have to do a backend fetch back to the origin, and so that backend fetch could be blocked just as easily as any other machine could be blocked. So what's your pipeline there? Then the way that we ended up solving that is to basically push to look ahead of time and say which ones are we using on the site, and then pre-put to local storage before in China.
Yeah, in our solution, we have the data plane part of the mesh, and there we have the processing services. And one of those processing services was responsible for fetching all those renditions from the dynamic media server. And when those renditions were downloaded, those were pushed to the China using the messaging system. So that's the solution how we solve it in our case, in our
Okay. I actually have a couple of questions around some of the dynamic media. I think that might be in, yeah, I think it's going to be in the next slide. So we can cover the off on some of those.
Because I think we already took up the GitOps end of things.
Yeah, we already talked about this. Let's see, some features that don't work, like recommended products and external services. I think this is probably also having to do with some of the dynamic content. But are there other kinds of non-essential edge delivery or AEM features that organizations should probably just plan to, not even have when or having it replaced with something else when they're delivering their content in China?
I don't know.
Probably stuff like,
I mean,
like Tag Manager or Analytics, Google Analytics, and the stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Yeah, if you're using the YouTube videos, those also won't work. But it's
so
not,
like if they're embedded, for example, in your site, then don't expect that to work. Find something else.
Yeah. So that like if you're on edge delivery as an example, you're going to want a whole series of block variants that that are taking into account alternatives for China. Like basically, you want to say something like, I just realized everybody else seems frozen. Am I still talking to everybody?
You're talking.
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. Sorry, everybody else's video froze, and I'm like, I might just be by myself here.
But, which, by the way, that's happened to me, and I've gone on for 20 minutes, not even realizing.
Oh my gosh! So, yeah. Especially when somebody poses a question, and then you just start going off and realize that just went to nobody else except for your room. But so what was I going to say? So for edge delivery, you'd want to do a whole series of block variants, and the way that we've been looking at approaching this is to just take the variables coming in from your CDN and just say, if my client country is China, then you're going to switch out for this, and you're going to need to be able to switch out for a bunch of different embeds. And some things like what is it? Vidyard that can have a China add-in that'll allow video to be delivered locally. But a lot of times, if video is going to be delivered locally, you need a ICP license for that specifically to be able to be delivered. So there's gotchas on all that content.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah, and actually any dynamic stuff, like even simple listing based on the query index in edge delivery services, it also can be problematic because your HTML will load, and then there will be another request for the JSON data from this index, right, to render the listing, and probably it will be blocked or it will be a timeout or something like that, and you will see only the part of your website, and the rest will be broken, right?
Right. That's right.
Okay. Okay, so I got a couple more questions here. This is really more about the a little bit more about the image transformation. I think we touched on this a little bit here too, but if you have these different variants, is the recommendation to just make sure that you have as much of the static ones out there as possible, and then the customer or the client is going to have to figure out which one to use, like which one's the best resolution. I mean, and then you got cache and validation issues. So what are your thoughts on handling all those different transformations and all those different versions of the images?
Well, first of all, we're not doing cache and validation because that's the first principle of all this is you're pushing it proactively to China. So you're instead, as opposed to saying you're going to hold on to this image for X amount of time, and if it's stale for whatever reason, then you're going to refetch the newest one. You don't ever want the person to fetch the newest one. Yep. You want to proactively feed the one that you want there, and then that's going to be the one until you feed a different one.
Yeah. And
that-
actually, in the normal use cases, even if you have like many thousands of variants or transformed images, all those used images and transformations are in your HTML, right? Because if you have those pictures, for example, in multiple resolutions or sizes, because you want to have this relative layout, you already know which renditions you are using. So you are able to proactively push those to the China.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, I think we had a couple more questions around images here too. So dynamic media, can we talk about that a little bit too? Is it basically something that, maybe is it planned in the future, or what are some of the other kinds of things that we need to worry about as far as delivering dynamic media? Because that's particularly used in things like commerce and and products, right? Product detail pages. You got a lot of different treatments that are happening there to show products.
Yeah. So dynamic media, in and of itself, that we didn't handle that at all in this particular solution. I don't necessarily have a fast answer for that.
But what do you mean by dynamic media? Do you want to have like dynamic transformations on the user request?
Yeah, different things that dynamic media provides. So, some of the treatments, for example. So is that something that may be coming? Is that something that, because if you think about it, a lot of different commerce providers who are using Adobe Commerce and dynamic media, they may have images which are treated a certain way for different ways that the product might show up on a product detail page, for example. Right? Like different colors, black and white, scaled, different treatments like that.
But all those treatments are like visible, are present in the HTML, right? In the HTML that you are rendering for the product, right? So if it is there, our processing service can fetch those already transformed images from the dynamic media and push it to the China, and it will simply work as it would be working on global infrastructure using CDN, because at the end it is doing exactly the same. It is taking those parameters and it's fetching the image from dynamic media server, and then this image is cached in CDN. But we are not caching; we are proactively pushing the same image.
Yep, got it. Okay, I think there were a couple more questions here. Let me just get through the rest of them. And if we've covered off on some of them, then perfectly happy to skip some of those too. We already talked about some of the renditions that are fetched, right? We already talked about some of the transform parameters. I wanted to make sure that we had enough time. We got 10 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that we get to the rapid fire questions, which is coming up. But before we get to that, any other last thoughts, recommendations, gotchas that we have not covered? Just remember, it's a really big population, right?
It is really big. I think that's the biggest one for me that I just have to just keep impressing on people, because it's funny. The biggest challenge that I keep running into is getting and keeping people interested in this. Like I almost feel I feel sometimes like I'm like, guys, this isn't like Uzbekistan or something like that. This isn't like Burkina Faso or some place that just. You're right. We don't need a specific site for Burkina Faso. They're great folks there, but they don't need their own engineered website. This place is huge. This is a massive fraction of internet users, and the fact that you're not like if you're not a global brand, then don't worry about it. But if you're a global brand, then you should worry about it, and it's worth the time to think it through.
Absolutely.
And maybe I have one gotcha or recommendation. It can be silly one, but if you want to test the performance, or even if you want to test if the content is reachable in China, use the in China computer to do that.
Yep. And that's available. And unfortunately, some of the services you'd hope they're all cheap, but they're not particularly sometimes. But like Ollie Cloud and Tencent all have virtual desktops that you can throw in and they'll just give you it takes you 10 minutes, and you can spin up an Ubuntu desktop in Shanghai or Hangzhou or Wuhan or whatever. You can fire up a couple of them and just run a couple of tests. So and then just make sure you destroy them, otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Cool. Okay. Let's get to the rapid fire questions, and Justin and I are going to basically switch off between asking Tad and Kamil questions. So I'm going to start it off first. Tad, I want to start with you. So let me get the first question here. So
we're not pre-prepped with any of these, by the way. So we have no idea what you're going to say.
Yep. So you were going to be in the hot seat for sure.
Okay.
Can you put ketchup on a bratwurst in Germany? And this is coming from a Chicagoan who doesn't put ketchup on hot dogs.
But they do this curry ketchup thing, which is delicious. And so I'm not a ketchup guy. I'm more of a barbecue sauce guy. But you can. But it's this curry ketchup stuff.
Okay. Cool.
But I gotta say that like when I'm there, like I think I had Doner like 7 times while I was in Berlin.
Of
like,
course,
I was
they're so good.
Doner fan, and there's like no place within like 500 miles of me to get Doner. So it's like Doner is a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. So Justin, I'll let you take this one.
Gotcha. Kamil, what German phrase do you remember? What was your most commonly used German phrase, if you had one, while you were there?
I don't know, but the only one that I remember is "Willkommen."
Hey,
that works. Not noch ein Bier, bitte? No. No.
Don't ask me, because of course it'll just be ein großes Doner mit Kartoffeln und Salat, bitte.
Right on.
Oh, maybe the garlic und scharf. It's about the sauce.
About the sauce.
Nice. Okay, question I got for Tad. What German phrase do you remember? I guess you just covered off on that. Huh?
Yep.
Right on. Okay, which is the biggest donor with potato salad?
With potatoes and salad, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, Justin, I'll let you take the next one.
Yep. So, Kamil, how many terminals in all of your local and virtual machines do you have open right now?
Right now, I have closed all of them.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, in normal days, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay, we got a similar one for Tad. How many tabs in all of your browser windows do you have open right now?
Right now, the answer is it's approximately 13 over there, and I just closed Firefox, so just the 13.
13. Okay.
Yeah, I do vertical tabs now, so I can scroll through them.
That sounds light.
Yeah,
that sounds light, maybe because it's the morning.
Yeah.
Browser tabs are the best cache for my memory. until I misclick and close all of them.
Yeah. Okay, next one.
What's harder to do, Kamil? Name a variable or center a div?
For me, it's a center a div.
It never ends, does it?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so a question for Tad. Biking in Germany, is it pure joy and bliss, or is it the same as navigating the Queensboro Bridge entrance in Manhattan?
Okay, so having just been biking in New York City. So New York City, I lived in New York City in my 20s, and New York City was just a danger. There's bike lanes all over the place now, and I biked extensively there. It's a lot better, although still people are coming for you and they still want your death. So I will definitely say that because in Berlin specifically, that is a delight. I've biked at every hour of the day in Berlin, and I totally feel safe. I would bike. I would not have a car if I was there. I just bike and take the train.
Right on. Okay, next one.
What was better in Berlin, Kamil, the tech sessions or the currywurst?
I didn't get the currywurst, so
no?
the tech sessions. Yeah.
What was your favorite meal that you did have over there? Your favorite snack or something that
It was doner. Doner kebab.
The doner?
Yeah.
They're popular.
It's a staple. Yeah.
Okay, Tad, next one for you. What metric do you care about more, your Strava streaks and King of the Mountains, or your GitHub contributions?
My wife would be able to answer this one for me, because I can't. I can't go to bed every day without having logged at least a mile on a Strava activity. So that's the streak that I care about. So yeah, the number of times that we finished movie night and I'm like, oh, dang it. And then I gotta go outside and go for a hike at like literally almost midnight. So yeah, that's the one I care about.
Okay.
Kamil, what kind of keyboard warrior are you? Are the silent assassin or loud and clicky? Silent assassin.
Yeah.
There you go. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I'm clicky. Just to chime in. Okay. Last one. Question for Tad. Tabs or spaces?
Tabs.
Tabs
Spaces are
right on.
insane. Yep.
Yeah. I'll have to agree with you on that one. Okay, so I think one more question here.
Yep. Kamil, would you rather have to debug a production issue on Friday at 5 p.m. or sit through your own presentation again right now?
Why not both?
Great answer. Great answer.
That's really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic for sure. Okay, so I'll end it with both. This is a question for both of you. It works on my machine. Is that a good excuse, or is it a good way to get fired?
I think that's a good way to get fired. That is not a valid excuse, especially these days.
Oh.
Kamil, would you answer the same?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I didn't see if there were any Q&A that came through. Justin, I know
We didn't have any come through there. No. Nope. It's just more in the chat.
Yep.
Comments.
Yeah, no, it's been a great discussion. So, just want to say thank you, Tad and Kamil and everyone else for joining. And we do have this chapter that's available. I think you can register for events, but do join the chapter if you haven't already. So we got the Midwest chapter. We've been doing these a little bit more often now. So getting into monthly. And we've been co-hosting them with other chapters as well. So it's been a lot of fun. We have these virtual, they're in person. So attend as you can. Like I said, they're great. Obviously, we have some great discussions and we got some great information coming from them. So I think that brings us right to the end. Any other last closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
I would say Kamil and Tad, I would assume you guys are going to attend AdaptTo again next year as well, right?
That's
Highly
absolutely the
likely.
plan.
Yeah.
Especially since Roman said that the pre-adaptive bike ride has to be a thing from now on. So
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And
just one other final.
Irritated at me for like, hold on, you didn't tell me, and I was going to bring my bike, and then other people were like, hold on, the American guy brought his bike, and I'm just coming from Munich, and I didn't bring my bike.
That's pretty impressive if you show up, flying across the pond and you've brought your own custom bike, and then they show up and they're like, I only live a few hours away and I didn't bring mine. My last question was going to be this from Tad as well, or Kamil, from last year to this year or previous years of AdaptTo to now, have you seen the growth? Have you seen the expanse? Is there more participants? Is there more to the actual presentations or a larger lineup or anything of that line?
They've kept it at about the same size, and I think that there is a desire to make it bigger. They had 1 year where they got a bigger venue, but that was before COVID, and so it's still kind of basically at capacity for the venue that it's in. But it's still, I think it's in no, it's going to always have that kind of solidified. This is almost like the sneaks for Summit, because this is all a lot of times this is like leaking it out before as everything's kind of solidifying of what's going to be.
Right. No, that's really cool.
Summit in the spring.
Fantastic.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you guys again. I'm going to be dropped for a call. I'm going to learn about LLM.
Yes, absolutely.
Alrighty.
Well, have a great day, everybody.
Yep. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.